Hi everyone, it's Laura here for Studio Katia, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to create an easy shaker card with the Paws for Kindness stamp set. Let's take a quick look at the products that I'll be using today. We have, of course, the Paws for Kindness stamp set. I'll be using the little girl in the set, and I think this is a really cute one to have, especially if you are a pet lover. I'm going to use the heart shaker die to create the window for my shaker. My front panel will be created with the scallop die in the dotted patterns set 4 dies. And then, as always, for my base I'm going to use the rectangle die in the darling ribbon and dotted frames dies. This is A2 size, so it's the size of my card front. I'm going to use this lovely stencil, this is called Love for Paws, and then I'm also going to use the lovely words dies at the end of the card making process. I started by doing some die cutting, so I have my watercolor cardstock, my base was die cut with the darling ribbon and dotted frames dies, so I have this 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches rectangle with a dotted detail all around. I have my scallop rectangle that I die cut with this die from the dotted patterns set 4 dies, and I'm going to cut an opening in it with the heart shaker die. As you saw, I used the stamp that I'm going to use later on as a guide to place my die so that I have an idea of the design, and then I ran everything through my die cutting machine. The cardstock that I'm using is watercolor cardstock by Crafter's Companion, which I like because it's bright white and it's great for ink blending. Speaking of ink blending, I'm going to add some color to my base panel using my Studio Katia blending brushes and Spectrum Noir Harmony ink in the color Fuchsia. These are the water reactive ones, so if you wanted to, you could add some droplets to this panel and create a bit of a distressed look, but I wanted to just add a more or less homogeneous layer of color. As you can see, I'm just going over the edges because the central part of this panel will be completely covered up, so I don't need to work on that area. And then once I have all the 4 sides open, I'm going to work on the background for my shaker. This is another panel of watercolor cardstock that I cut to a size that is a little bit larger than the shaker window, so that heart-shaped die cut that I have on my front panel. I secured it on my make art station, and I'm blending again the same Fuchsia Spectrum Noir ink through the Love for Paws stencil to create this fun pattern on my shaker background. While the ink was a little bit wet, I brushed my Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearl through the stencil, and this is going to add some subtle shimmer to this panel. It's very delicate as an effect, but I think it's absolutely pretty, and here I'm trying to show you how it looks when you move it against the light. As always, these things are kind of hard to catch on camera, but in real life they do make the difference. Next, I started assembling my shaker, so I am coating the back of my shaker front with my tape runner so that I can go ahead and adhere my clear acetate to it. I then coated the back of my shaker front with some foam tape by Studio Katia. I have only one layer because I'll be using glitter and I don't need a lot of room for it to be able to move. I also deactivated the stick from the sides of the foam tape using my EK Success powder tool. At this point I haven't removed the backing off of the foam tape. I used Chunky Sparkle Glitter and Majestic Glitter by Studio Katia, and the good thing is that this is not super fine glitter, so it's not going to run out of your shaker basically. I backed the shaker window with my background that I created with my Love for Paws stencil, and then I could go ahead and adhere everything to the shaker base, and the shaker part of my card is done. Before moving on, I had to play with it a little bit, and shaker cards are so fun and so easy to make, and I love this one with this glitter inside it. Next step was to work on my image, and for that, as I said, I used the Love for Paws stamp set. I'm stamping the girl in the set on some Nina Solar White 110 pounds cardstock using alcohol-proof black ink by Spectrum Noir, and I'm going to do some coloring with my Illustrator markers. I started from the skin and I'm going to use TN5, TN3, FS5, FS8 and FS9. These sound like a lot of markers to use on these small areas, but basically I'm just using TN5 and TN3 for my shadows to have them nice and deep so that I can create a lot of dimension. And then I'm mostly using the FS5 to tone these browns and make them a little bit more of a peachy tone. And then I'm going to blend everything out with FS8 and FS9, which is my highlight marker. I'm adding my shading as if the light was coming from the top left of the screen, so I added the shadows to the right and to the lower portions of the images. And I'm starting directly with my darker markers in the shadow areas and blending everything out with progressively lighter markers. You could also start from your lightest marker and use that to map the shadow areas and then go ahead and add depth and darkness to your image. But in this case I felt the coloring was pretty simple and I knew more or less where the shadows were going to fall, so I sped things up a little bit by going in directly with my darker markers. For the hair I used LY1, GB3 and GB5, and in this case I did start from the lightest marker because I feel like I get more control like this when I color hair specifically. I'm using brush strokes to create some texture in the hair and then I can move on and color the t-shirt of this little girl. I used HB3, HB2 and HB1 and then I decided to darken up the shadows a little bit more by bringing in some LV3. And by the way, on the blog post that you will find linked in the description box down below, I will have a list of the markers I used, so you can use that as a reference if you are interested. I used TB9 for the shorts and then I used VB3 and VB1 for the shoes. The area is very small, so I didn't feel like I needed more than 2 shades and that's why I used 2 markers only. And then for the smile on the t-shirt I used MG5, MG3 and MG1 because I wanted to bring a little bit of the pink that I have on the background on the image as well. For the dog, I started by adding my shadows with GY5, I then blended that out with GY3 and I left a little bit of room for my highlight marker, which is GY1. I decided that I wanted to warm up these browns a little bit more, so I added some BO4 to the shadow areas and some BO3 to the mid-tone areas. For the white areas I used a warm grey, this is my BG3 marker, and I blended it out with my blender. And then the last image to color was the cat, that I decided to color as if it was a ginger cat. So I used BO4 for the shadows, BO3 and BO1 for the midtones, and then I left a little bit of a white space to fill in the highlights with GY2. I also added some stripes to the cheeks, the back, the legs and the tail of the cat, and then once I was done coloring, I die cut everything with the coordinating dies to the Paws for Kindness stamp set. I used my liquid glue by Studio Katia and my EK Success reverse tweezers to adhere the image to the card front. As you can see, I am slightly overlapping it with the shaker window. And then for the sentiment, I used the Lovely Words dies by Studio Katia. I die cut some black cardstock and I adhered that to the card front again. I decided to embellish everything with some iridescent hearts that I'm gluing down using my embellishment wands and again my liquid glue by Studio Katia. And then as a last step, I added some sparkle to the t-shirt and the ribbon of the girl with a glitter brush pen by scrapbook.com. I was going to stop there, but then I decided to add some sparkle to the shoes as well as to the sentiment. I adhered everything to a top folding A2 card base. I have some heavyweight white cardstock that I cut to 5.5 by 8.5 inches and scored at 4.25 inches, and that finished off my card for today. Here is a close-up of the final result. I think it turned out really cute, it was very quick to make, and it's not too bulky because we used just one layer of foam tape, so it's not going to be a problem to mail it at all. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I inspired you to create your own shaker cards using the Studio Katia Paws for Kindness stamp set. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more card making and paper crafting inspiration. Thank you all so much for stopping by, and have a great day!